wheel. And with that, I turn it over to Mr. Congressman Beyer.
Thank you, Glenn. Mr. Ivey said it very well, but let me just add two things. The only final reconciliation here will be diplomacy. We had a joint comprehensive plan of action in the Obama administration that was going to postpone any nuclear weapon they had for at least 20 years. It's worked really well. Trump tore it up, and now is trying to do it with bombs. It's not working. Iran's probably more resolute than ever to build a nuclear weapon, since they now decide that's the only way they can ever be safe. So we have to turn back to diplomacy. It's also essential that everyone respect the ceasefire, and that includes Israel's activities in Lebanon and Beirut, where they're bombing downtown Beirut. Let me also just say, the Constitution is very clear that the power to declare war rests with the Congress of the United States. That's what we tried to do this morning. The pro forma speaker ignored us, which was a tragedy, but we will keep fighting. With that, let me turn it over to the distinguished member of Congress from Philadelphia, Mary Gates Hanlon.
Thank you, Tom. Look, for decades there's been agreement across administrations that while Iran is a threat, it is a threat that must be dealt with through diplomacy, not war. This administration has ignored that consensus and engaged in a war of choice that is a disaster. And then, earlier this week, the president threatened literal war crimes. So Americans of conscience across the political spectrum were immediately concerned and questioned his judgment, his morality, and his competence. Our offices, all of our offices, have received hundreds of calls from concerned constituents demanding that Congress reconvene and address this threat through a war powers resolution and further action to rein in an out-of-control president. We have attempted to do that today. We urge our Republican colleagues to grow a spine, have the courage to do the right thing. Thank you. I will now introduce my colleague from Pennsylvania, Madeline Dean.
Thank you, Representative, and I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues. Democrats are here on the Hill saying to the Congress, saying to the Speaker of the House, have us back in session so that we would live up to our constitutional responsibilities. Article 1, Section 8. It is Congress who can declare war. It is not a self-serving president who is guided by Mr. Netanyahu for his own purposes. You know, the president was hired to do two things: to keep us safe and to reduce costs for everyday Americans. He's failed spectacularly at both by his own actions, not by economic factors out of his control, by his own actions. Look at us now in a war of his choosing, egged on by Mr. Netanyahu for his purposes. A war that has proved deadly to 13 members of the American military, heroes who said, yes, we will do whatever it takes to serve our country, selflessly gave of themselves, gave the ultimate sacrifice. Hundreds of others are injured and buried thousands of innocents in the rubble. All of this, a 40-day war, and as my colleague, Mr. Ivey just said, think about this, folks. The Speaker has had us in session for 33 days, this Congress. 33 days. We are not operating as the Article 1 power that we must be. The Speaker must live up to his constitutional responsibilities. Call us back in. Consider the War Powers Resolution. Let the American people and their representatives in Congress weigh in. The words and actions of this president have proved that he is unhinged and unwell, and has been for some time. Over the weekend, we read and heard the president's Easter morning tweet of profanity, blasphemy, danger, and the following day, his threat to eliminate an entire civilization. Pause there. These are not normal times, America. When will my Republican colleagues stand up in the House, in the Senate, the Vice President, the cabinet secretaries who surround this madman? When will they grow a spine? When will they say, stop? We've been taken to an even darker corner of his addled mind than one that we witnessed this week, as children in Iran and around the globe sat in fear, worrying if a president of the United States would blow up an entire civilization, Iran. How much farther into the dark corners of this president's mind must we go before leaders stand up? Before leaders stand up for the children who are terrified here and around the globe by the president's words and actions. we must consider the War Powers Resolution. And now it is my privilege to turn this over to my colleague and friend from California, Sarah Jacobs.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. I represent San Diego, the biggest military community in the country. And the things that our president is asking of our service members are unconscionable. To sacrifice their lives with no strategy, no plan. It is not the president's community that is being asked to go over there and suffer the consequences of his decisions. It's mine. And I can tell you, I've heard from so many military families who are so concerned about what their loved ones are potentially being asked to do. Imagine if you're a service member thinking what you might do if you're given the order to destroy a civilization. Okay? This is the position that we are putting our service members in, who are required by law to not follow an unlawful order. We cannot excuse what the president said as a negotiating tactic. Threatening genocide is not a negotiating tactic. It is important that even though we were able to get this ceasefire, which I pray holds, that we hold this president accountable for what he threatened. Because threatening genocide is not just against international law, it's against our federal law too, and it is our job as Congress to stand up. This president cannot be trusted to police himself. He does not recognize any red lines. Not $200 billion, not 13 service members lost, not thousands of civilians, not genocide. The only thing that will put a check on him is us in Congress doing our job, standing up and saying not one more cent. Standing up and saying you do not have the authorization to do this. Stand up and saying that this is not okay. And every American of conscience from across the political spectrum is and should be disgusted by the fact that we even have to stand here talking about the fact that the United States president threatened to commit genocide against an entire civilization. That is not right. That is not okay. That is not something that we all should be dealing with. We need to end this war, and not just the war between the U.S. and Iran. We need to end the broader war and make sure that thousands of civilians in Lebanon are not being bombed constantly. We need to end this war with a real, durable, diplomatic solution, and that will only happen if our Republican colleagues get back here, stand up to this president, put a real check on his power like the Constitution demands us to do, and demand that he does not spend another cent, that he does not send another service member into harm's way. With that, I will turn it over to my colleague from Virginia, Representative Super Nine.
Thank you. The American people deserve to have their voices heard, and what they want right now is for us to be back in session. They want Congress to do its job, and it also means having a War Powers Resolution vote to end this war, and making sure we end this DHS shutdown as well that continues to hurt us, and making sure that we do things to lower costs of the American people, not raise costs. But that's what's been happening under this Republican majority. So for the Republican majority, if you're watching this, get us back to work, get us back in session. Let's have a vote on the Senate plan to end the DHS shutdown. Let's have a vote to end this war, because this ceasefire is a joke. This war should never have happened in the first place, and Congress deserves to say, and the American people deserve to say. I'm going to hand it over to James Walkinshaw from Virginia.
Thank you, Suhas. We're here today and went to the House floor to try to force an end to Donald Trump's dangerous, reckless, unauthorized war in Iran. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that the American people are paying the price for this war as we speak. 13 brave service members who lost their lives have paid the ultimate price. American taxpayers paying billions of dollars a day as the war rages and the bombs fall. We're spending millions of dollars on Patriot missiles to intercept drones that Iran launches from the back of a pickup truck and costs them $10,000 or $20,000. While at the same time, in our home state of Virginia, 33,000 Virginians have lost their health insurance because the Republican Congress says we couldn't afford to extend a middle-class tax credit to help Americans afford their health care. So congressional Republicans have a choice. They can continue to stand with Donald Trump and his illegal, dangerous, reckless war in the Middle East, or they can put America and Americans first and join us in passing a war powers resolution to rein in this out-of-control president and end this war. With that, I want to turn it over to Congresswoman Emily Randall.
Thank you. I am proud to stand here with my colleagues here in Washington, D.C., where we should be, where our constituents want us to be. Our phones in our office, like I'm sure all of my colleagues, have been ringing off the hook from neighbors who want to see an end to this war, who are worried about the strength of our Constitution, who are terrified that this president is going to cause us more and more and more danger and damage. It's not okay. It's not okay that we are out of session while a president is threatening genocide. It's not okay that folks are struggling to afford their housing and health care and child care bills while we are facing the impact of a president choosing to spend billions of dollars on a war that he chose to get us into. None of this is okay. None of this is normal. And our constituents across the country deserve us to act. They deserve to see action from Congress. We are here ready to take action to pass a war powers resolution to end this war. We need our Republican colleagues to show up too. We need Speaker Johnson to call us into session. And barring that, I'm calling on my Republican colleagues to show up on their own, to come here and join us and demand action, because the American people deserve it. Thank you.
Now we'll take questions from the. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Ivey. Thank you, everybody. Quick question, Representative Dean. You led the second impeachment. You were part of the second impeachment of President Trump. Is impeachment something that Democrats could consider, or even be on the table at this point?
Well, I know you know that we
To the cameras.
Okay.
We went through 2 impeachments with Donald Trump as a result of his high crimes and misdemeanors, just some of them, captured in the first term. As you all know, we are in the minority. So bringing forward impeachment right now, while he is guilty of a litany of high crimes and misdemeanors, I don't think it is the best use of our time. Let us get into the majority. Let us get a Senate majority and then hold this president to account. But for right now, I call upon, and I think about those days when I was a manager during the second impeachment, and we made our closing arguments on the floor of the Senate. And what did Mr. McConnell do? And I say this to warn Leader Thune. You do not want to be in the same position that Mitch McConnell is in for all of history, voting not to convict the president for his high crimes and misdemeanors of inciting an insurrection at this very place, where Capitol Police officers were beaten, more than 5 lost their lives. You do not want to be in that same place, Mr. Thune, to wave a flag and allow the president to continue this. So the president needs to be held accountable. We'll do it first through the War Powers Resolution and get control back for Congress, and second, through elections to unseat these people who are amazingly silent.
I just want to add, our Republican colleagues saw the exact same tweets that we saw over the weekend, right? Our Republican colleagues know. They know that threatening genocide is not acceptable. I urge them to come back, and all options should be on the table. They should come back. They should realize that their president is putting us in harm's way, is making us less safe, and they should also be demanding impeachment. They should also be demanding the 25th Amendment. They should be here with us on behalf of the American people. This is not a partisan issue. Threatening genocide is not a partisan issue. I guarantee you, if it was a Democratic president who threatened genocide, we would all be standing here too saying the exact same thing. Because this is not about right versus left. This is about what is right for our country. And so don't ask us about impeachment. Ask the majority who should be standing up for the American people.
Congresswoman, just to follow up on what you're saying, are you saying that if Democrats do win the majority, impeachment is something that would be on the table?
Obviously, I'll be talking with our leadership about that. But it is a constitutional provision to rein in an unscrupulous, thoughtless president. Have we ever seen a more unscrupulous, thoughtless president? I mean, there is literally a list of high crimes and misdemeanors that he has committed. And I want to echo what Sarah just said. Where are the Republicans? Why are they silent? The profane tweet on Easter Sunday, where are they? The saying by 8 p.m., I will end a civilization. Where are they? If that's not high crimes and misdemeanors, And if it's not madness, I don't know what is. So, of course, we will never give up our constitutional duties around holding a president to account, impeachment. But I will be guided by our leadership at the right time when to do it.
Other questions?
This weekend, we're on the topic of the ceasefire. This weekend, the president has deputized Vice President J.D. Vance and a couple of other advisors to head to Pakistan to participate in these negotiations. Do you all have confidence in that group of people that are headed to lead the United States in negotiations?
Look, I'm glad that he's at least sending someone actually from the administration instead of two people that have heretofore been freelancing on his behalf, his son-in-law and a real estate executive that has no diplomatic experience. So at least he's sending someone from the administration, and I'm hopeful that Vice President Vance will be relying on the expertise in the State Department and other parts of the U.S. government to actually be able to get a real serious negotiation going.
I'll say this. I mean, the 10 points that the Iranians gave us, that the president said were workable, we can work with this. I was shocked when I actually saw what those 10 points were, because I don't think any of them are acceptable. So he's dug a hole for himself and for the United States. He's trying to find any way out that he possibly can, but we got to make sure that whatever he does, we need to take the wheel back from him and make sure that the interests of the United States are held up and not just him covering his behind.
Are you at all confident that Republicans would join in a war powers resolution?
They should.
Well, you know, look, we need a couple of votes to get a discharge petition to get this out. I think we've got something coming up in the very near future. I think there's a goal. I don't know if it's going to turn into the Epstein files kind of discharge petition.
We don't need a discharge petition for war powers.
Okay.
War powers is a privilege resolution. We plan on calling the privilege next week when we're back, and I'm hopeful that the vast majority of our Republican colleagues will be voting with us to end this ridiculous, illegal, unsafe war that does not put the U.S. in any safer.
And a couple of the House Republicans, like Moran from Texas, came out against what the president was saying. So we only need a couple of votes to get there.
That's right.
And there's some that may be in place. We may be able to get it done.
Every Republican should say, yes, we need to argue this on the floor of the House and vote up or down. I think it will be a strong down.
Congressman Ivey, going back to your point about the 10 points resolution and that some parts of the Trump administration might agree to, what are the points of that 10-point plan that the Democrats would not agree to?
Well, I get just off the top of my head, the whole Strait of Hormuz piece, where he's talking about, at this point, he said something about doing a joint venture with Iran to charge tolls for people to go through there. Now, 60 days ago, nobody had to pay anything to go through there. Now he's allowed the Iranians to take control of it. It's a bargaining chip for them that they're going to use. And instead of saying, nope, you got to put it back so it's free passage again, he's talking about working with them and splitting. That's outrageous. I just think that's crazy. So there's many of them like that. But the key, I think, is to make sure Strait of Hormuz goes back to free passage, and also whatever it is with respect to the nuclear piece that he said we were going to go in to take care of, remembering that he told us in June that it was already taken care of. Clearly that's not the case. We need to make sure that gets locked down at the end of this deal.
Do you think that if Trump does approve an agreement, or if he agrees to something with Iran, that it needs congressional approval?
Similar to the JCPOA, there has actually been legislation filed about what kind of deals with Iran require congressional approval, and I hope that they will follow that law and come to Congress.
Speaking of those 10-point plans, the president's 15-point proposal, etc., are you aware that leadership or any appropriate committees have actually received what specifically those are on paper, and are there requests to, if not?
So I sit on both the House Armed Services and the House Foreign Affairs committees, two of the three committees of jurisdiction, and we have received no information. I don't believe leadership has either. And so I think it's incredibly important that is part of why we are asking Speaker Johnson to call us back into session so that we can have those briefings and get a sense of what has actually been agreed to, what is really going on, what does this ceasefire really look like, and what is the plan and strategy ahead to get to a real durable end to this war, not just in Iran, but in the broader region.
Let's do one more.
Quickly on,
Okay.
on DHS funding, if I can ask, obviously DHS is still shut down. The Senate has repassed their plan back over to you all. Do you have any sense, have you had any conversations with your Republican colleagues over the last week since the Senate sent that back to you all about when they might bring that up for a vote in the House? to pass that broader DHS
It's been
bill?
total silence from Republicans on voting on the Senate bill that was unanimous. It seems like even the White House is open to supporting. And all they have to do is call a vote on it because it already has the votes. Enough Republicans will already support it. They just need to put it on the floor for a vote. It's just they are catering to the most extreme wing of their caucus, and that's the only reason why it hasn't been passed at this point.
And in addition to catering to the most extreme wing, you saw the Speaker 2 Fridays ago send us home after a ridiculous 10:30 vote because he wouldn't bring up the Senate unanimously passed deal for DHS funding, which was actually the Democratic proposal. Why did he do that? Sure, he's paying attention to the far right. He also is trying to hold on to his speakership. He knew that if he put that on the floor, there'd be a vote to vacate the chair. The Speaker is showing that he does not care about the American people. He does not care to keep us safe and constitutionally sound, that he cares only to carry the water of this unwell president and to save his own speakership.
You need a new speaker?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, please, God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hakeem Jeffries
Hakeem Jeffries
used to be the speaker of
A
that.
speaker.
Absolutely.
How about an actual speaker like
Yeah.
Hakeem Jeffries?
Let's break
Thank
for
you.
individuals, but thanks everybody.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Ask the Republicans what they're doing.
Yeah, I'll take that other stick.
We want to use.
That's just together. Just helping the competition.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to try to grab someone.
There you are. You do my job.
I will.
You know, Elsa Bayless, I come
How are you?
In the meantime, we're 30 weeks away from taking the majority.
Yeah. Do you think there's a good portion of the caucus who still shares that? I know because it's like
It's going to be mixed in the caucus.
Yeah.
I mean, there'll be Al Green and stuff that are going to want to impeach right away. And there's a lot of passion in our base. The people that are calling me that want to impeach right now. But I think, first of all, I think we will defer.
Thank you. It's okay. I didn't feel let me know. I think they're gonna. You're probably already in contact with them in terms of like sending the audio and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'll send it out.
Cool.
Am I sending it to IBC?
Jeff as well?
Yeah, I can send it to you.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.